The Galactic Academy of Comparative Civilizations floated in a quiet orbit above a blue-green gas giant. From space, it looked like a silver ring surrounded by lights and ships from 100 worlds. Every corridor inside was full of life, creatures of many shapes, colors, and voices, all there to learn about one another. For most students, today's lesson was supposed to be an easy one. The subject was called Primitive Conflict Studies, Case Study, Homo sapiens. Most had never heard of that species before. Humans were an old extinct race from a small world in a forgotten arm of the galaxy. The name Earth meant almost nothing to them. The students took their seats in a wide, dome-shaped hall. The walls were covered with glowing screens and the floor shone like glass. The air smelled faintly of ozone and curiosity. The teacher, Professor Velnar, arrived without sound. He was tall and thin, his skin a pale silver that shimmered when he moved. His people were known for peace and logic. He placed a small crystal on the table before him, and the lights dimmed. Today, Velnar began in his calm voice, we study one of the most unusual civilizations in galactic history, the humans of Earth. A ripple of murmurs filled the hall. Some students laughed quietly. Were they not the species that destroyed themselves? Asked Koro, a scaled student from the planet Jal. Velnar's lips curved slightly. Partially true. Their wars caused great loss, but their story is more complicated. He touched the crystal and the first image appeared. It showed a group of humans wearing metal armor, holding shields and swords. They stood in rows on a muddy field, rain falling over them. These are soldiers from a period called the Middle Ages, said Velnar. They fought with blades for land, faith, and kings. The image moved. The students saw the humans running, shouting, clashing together. The sound of steel echoed around the hall. Gasps filled the air. Tequila, a delicate crystalline being whose body sparkled like glass, spoke softly. They attacked each other directly. No drones, no mind links. They used their own bodies. Yes, said Velnar. Humans placed themselves in danger. They called it courage, and courage? Tequila repeated. Why would a being need such a thing? The professor changed the image again. Now it showed ships on the ocean, their sails torn by wind. Smoke rose as cannons fired. They fought across water, air, and later, space itself. Velnar continued. Each war taught them something new. They learned to create machines faster than any other species known. The room darkened again. The next scene showed flying craft diving through clouds, explosions bright against the sky. Tiny figures jumped from burning planes, parachutes opening like flowers of white. The students leaned forward. Some covered their eyes with their limbs or wings. Velnar spoke gently. You may feel discomfort. Violence is unpleasant, but it is part of understanding them. To humans, conflict was both a curse and a teacher. The lecture continued, each image showing a new time. Soldiers in trenches, then astronauts in white suits floating above their planet, then crowds of humans marching not for war but for peace. See, Velnar said, they learned to fight for something greater than survival. They began to fight for others, for ideas. The screens filled with scenes of humans helping each other in disasters, pulling strangers from ruins, sharing food, rebuilding cities. They evolved, the professor said. Not only their weapons, but their hearts. The hall fell silent. Even Koro, who had mocked them, now stared quietly. After a long pause, a student from the insectoid world of Draka raised her thin hand. Professor, she clicked, why show us this now? These humans are gone. Their world is silent. Velnar nodded slowly. Because lessons do not die with their makers. Every civilization here believes it has moved beyond conflict. Yet peace is fragile when understanding is shallow. He turned off the crystal and looked around the hall. His silver eyes reflected the students' many colors. Humans were dangerous, yes, he said, but also creative, loyal, and brave. They showed that intelligence alone is not enough. Emotion, empathy, and willpower, these too can change worlds. The lights brightened, signaling the end of class. But no one moved. The students sat still, lost in thought. Later that day, Tequila stayed behind. The crystal being's surface glowed faintly blue with curiosity. Professor, Tequila said, I do not understand. My kind never fought. We live by harmony. Yet while I watched those humans, I felt something. Velnar smiled softly. That is empathy. You are feeling what they felt. That is the start of understanding. Tequila tilted her head, puzzled. But how could such violent creatures also create beauty? Velnar activated a final image. It showed Earth at sunset, blue oceans, white clouds, golden light fading over continents. Because, he said quietly, they loved what they might lose. They fought so their children could see the sky again. Takala stared at the image for a long time. Perhaps extinction was too heavy a price, she whispered. Perhaps, said Velnar, but their legacy remains. Their stories survive here. That evening, in the Academy's grand dining hall, the students gathered in small groups, still talking about the humans. Koros slammed his tail on the floor. They were reckless. Always fighting. No wonder their species vanished. A winged student from the planet Null fluttered her wings softly. Yet they kept surviving, didn't they? Every time they fell, they rose again. Takala added, they helped even their enemies sometimes. That is strange to me, Koros snorted. Madness. Maybe, said Takala. But maybe that madness made them strong. Their conversation drew attention from nearby tables. Soon half the hall was discussing humanity. Some called them beasts, others heroes. Some said their ways should never return. Others wondered if the galaxy could learn something from them. At a far corner, Professor Velnar watched his students. A quiet satisfaction warmed him. He had taught this course for many years, but never had he seen such fascination. Maybe the galaxy was finally ready to learn what humans had left behind. A few days later, the students returned for the second part of the lecture. The room was even more crowded. Others had joined just to see. This lesson, Velnar said, is about the final centuries of human history, the time when they reached for the stars. He played a video of rockets lifting off from Earth, fire bursting beneath them. The humans inside were small, yet their machines broke free of gravity and climbed into space. Behold, said the professor, the first species to leave its home world by pure will. The aliens watched in awe. No telepathy, no anti-gravity, no genetic wings, just engines and courage. The footage changed to humans on the moon, placing a flag into the ground. Cora whispered. They were proud creatures. Yes, said Velnar, and their pride often caused pain, but it also gave them hope. Next came images of great cities shining at night, of people building machines that spoke, machines that learned. Then finally a dark screen filled with words. The last transmission of Earth. A human voice echoed in the hall. It was old, weary, but full of dignity. If anyone finds this message, know that we tried. We fought not for conquest, but for tomorrow. Learn from us. Remember us. Silence followed. Some students bowed their heads. Others sat frozen, moved by something they could not name. Velnar looked around. This is why we study them. Not for their wars, but for their will. Even in their end, they wanted others to learn. He ended the lesson. The students left in quiet groups. Takala stayed behind once more. Professor, she said, do you think we could ever be like them? In what way? He asked. In courage, Takala said. In passion. In the way they never gave up. Velnar smiled gently. That depends on what the galaxy does next. Every world here believes peace is natural. Humans knew peace was something you build every day, even when everything breaks around you. He turned back to the window. Outside, the stars shimmered like endless eyes. Somewhere among them, maybe fragments of human satellites still drifted, silent witnesses to a species that once dared to reach the heavens. Takala followed his gaze. Perhaps they are not gone, she whispered. Perhaps some echo of them still listens. The professor nodded. If they do, I hope they know we remember. That night, Takala could not rest. The images of humans filled her mind, their battles, their songs, their laughter. They were strange creatures. Yet something about them felt familiar. She realized that her world, for all its peace, had grown dull and slow. No one there risked anything. No one dreamed beyond safety. She began to wonder if peace without purpose was truly living. She opened her data pad and replayed the final message of Earth again and again. Each time the same line struck her heart. Learn from us. Remember us by morning, she had decided. She would learn everything she could about humans, not to copy their wars, but to understand their strength. When she next met Professor Velnar, he noticed the glow in her crystal form. You've been studying, he said. Yes, Takala replied. I read about their scientists, their artists, their explorers. They were always moving forward, even when afraid. That, said Velnar, was their greatest weapon. Takala looked thoughtful. Maybe the galaxy needs a little of that again. Velnar looked at her kindly. Perhaps it will. Sometimes when the stars grow too quiet, the memory of humanity reminds us to wake up. He placed the crystal on the table again and whispered, and one day maybe someone will find them, not just their ruins, but their descendants. Outside, the gas giant turned slowly beneath the academy. The stars shone brighter, as if listening. Weeks passed at the Galactic Academy. Life returned to normal, but something had changed in the hearts of the students who had seen the human archives. They spoke often about courage, about will, about the strange creatures from Earth who had refused to surrender to fear. Takala, the crystal student, still studied human history every night. Her dorm was filled with holograms of old Earth, mountains, oceans, cities, and the faces of people long gone. Sometimes she would replay the final human message and whisper the words along with the recording. Learn from us. Remember us. She didn't know why those words mattered so much, but she felt they meant something important, something the galaxy had forgotten. One quiet morning, alarm shattered the peace of the academy. Red lights flashed through the corridors and an urgent voice echoed through the halls. Emergency alert. Outer colonies under attack. All senior instructors to the command center. Students looked at one another in fear. Attacks were almost unknown in this age of peace. Who would dare? Professor Velnar hurried past them, his silver skin flickering with anxiety. Takala followed him. Professor, what's happening? Velnar turned, his expression grim. A swarm of energy parasites, void creatures from the dark between stars, has reached the colony world of Arctis Prime. Our defenses are failing. These beings devour power and matter alike. Takala's glow dimmed. Can the fleet stop them? Logic says they should, Velnar said, but the parasites do not follow patterns. Our AI systems cannot predict their moves. Every attempt at calculation fails. He hesitated, then added softly, It seems chaos has come to the galaxy again. Hours later, the Academy gathered in the Grand Hall. The Galactic Council appeared on the central screen, leaders from many species, their faces tight with worry. A voice spoke. We are losing Arctis Prime. The defense drones cannot adapt fast enough. Entire regions are gone. Silence filled the hall. Then another voice said, We must retreat and seal that system. The council began to argue. Some called for evacuation. Others demanded stronger algorithms. No one spoke of fighting directly. No one except Takala. She raised her crystalline hand. Excuse me, she said softly, but her voice carried. Maybe we are thinking the wrong way. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her. She continued, trembling a little. In Professor Velnar's class, we learned about the humans. They faced chaos every day. Wars, disasters, enemies stronger than them. But they won because they learned to adapt. They didn't wait for perfect plans. They used instinct and courage. Koro, the scaled student, scoffed. Instinct, emotion, those things destroy reason. Takala turned to him, and yet reason alone is failing us now. Velnar stepped forward, his expression thoughtful. She may be right. The humans thrived in unpredictability. Perhaps their strategies could help us understand this threat. The council went silent. Then slowly the oldest among them, a being of light named Chancellor Orvan, spoke. Professor Velnar, he said, you have studied this extinct race. Could their knowledge truly aid us? Velnar bowed slightly. Perhaps. If we can simulate their combat logic, we might find new tactics. Orvan nodded. Then do it. The survival of the colonies may depend on it. Within hours, the Academy transformed into a war laboratory. Old data from the human archives was unlocked, forming a massive simulation called Project Terran Mind. In dark halls, holographic humans appeared, soldiers, pilots, tacticians, constructed from history and memory. They spoke of battlefields long gone, but their lessons still burned with life. Takala watched, fascinated, as the holographic humans trained them. A general in an ancient uniform stood before a group of aliens and said, You can't fight chaos with perfection. You fight it by being faster, braver, and unpredictable. Another soldier wearing armor from the 21st century added, When the plan fails, adapt. When you're afraid, move anyway. Fear means you care. Takala listened carefully. Their words struck her heart like fire. A few days later, a desperate message came from Arctis Prime. We cannot hold much longer. Requesting aid or evacuation. The council was ready to abandon the world, but Velnar spoke up. Let the students try their simulation strategy, he said. We have nothing left to lose. After a long silence, the council agreed. Takala and her classmates were placed aboard a command ship orbiting the edge of the battle. Before them, the world of Arctis Prime burned with blue fire as the parasites swarmed like living shadows. The crew looked at Takala nervously. You studied human war? One asked. Only their courage, she answered. Let's see if it still works. The human simulation linked with the ship's systems. Instantly, data streamed across the screens. Battle patterns, tactical advice, and a voice from the AI core that sounded oddly human. Welcome, cadets. This is Combat Archive 04, designation Captain Reynolds. Let's win this, shall we? The crew exchanged glances. Takala smiled faintly. We'll follow your lead, Captain. The parasites struck first, tearing through the fleet's outer defenses. The aliens panicked, shouting reports, but the human voice stayed calm. Don't chase them. Let them think we're weak. Pull back, then hit hard when they move in. The aliens hesitated. This was not logical. It was risky. But Takala said, do it. Humans called this a trap. They retreated, pretending to flee. The parasites surged forward, chasing what looked like an easy victory, until hidden turrets activated and fired in perfect timing. The swarm scattered, disoriented. Cheers filled the bridge. Good, said the AI calmly. Now press them. Keep changing tactics. Don't give them a pattern. The battle turned chaotic. Ships moved unpredictably, using maneuvers inspired by ancient human dogfights and naval ambushes. For the first time, the parasites faltered. Still, the fight was far from over. The energy creatures adapted too, learning each move quickly. Takala clenched her glowing hands. Captain Reynolds, they're changing again. Then so will we, the AI replied. That's the human way. Hours passed. The aliens grew exhausted, but the spirit of humanity guided them forward. Every time logic said retreat, they found a new way. Finally, Takala had an idea. What if we overload the main reactor and detonate it near the swarm's core? The crew gasped. That's suicide. She shook her head. Not if we remote trigger it and use the energy wave to push them away. I read about something like this, a human tactic called sacrifice play. Velnar's voice came through the communicator. Takala, are you sure? She looked out at the burning world below. If the humans were here, they wouldn't stop now. The crew prepared the plan. A cargo vessel filled with unstable plasma was sent straight into the swarm. Parasites rushed toward it, hungry for energy. Now, Takala shouted. The explosion lit up the darkness, a silent, blinding wave that tore through the void. The shock wave scattered the parasites, breaking their link. Without unity, they dissolved like mist. When the light faded, the stars shone again. Arctis Prime was scarred but alive. Cheers erupted across the command ship. The AI's voice spoke one last time, soft and proud. Not bad, cadets. The humans would have liked you. Then the simulation shut down. Later, back at the academy, Takala and her team stood before the Galactic Council. The Chancellor of Light addressed them. You have done what none of our fleets could. How? Takala bowed slightly. We learned from a species that refused to surrender. They taught us that sometimes logic must step aside for courage. That hope can fight even when reason says it's over. The Chancellor's bright form pulsed gently. And the parasites? Gone, said Velnar. But the lesson remains. The hall was silent for a long time. Then slowly applause began. Soft at first, then stronger, echoing through the academy like thunder. That night, Takala stood alone in the observation dome, looking out at the stars. Velnar joined her quietly. You led well, he said. I only followed their example, she replied. Velnar smiled. That is what leadership is, learning from those who came before. They stood together watching the silent beauty of space. Do you think humans would be proud of us? Takala asked. Velnar looked at the stars. If they still exist somewhere, I think they are smiling. She nodded. I hope they know we remembered. He placed a hand on the crystal beside her. Because of you, they will never be forgotten. Weeks later, a new program was added to the Academy's curriculum. Its name was Human Studies, the Art of Survival. Students from all across the galaxy joined. They learned not just about weapons and wars, but about bravery, cooperation, and compassion. On the wall above the classroom, carved in ancient Terran letters, were the final words of the human message: learn from us, remember us. And every time Takala walked past those words, she felt warmth in her crystal heart, because she knew the truth now. Humans might have vanished from their world, but their spirit still lived among the stars. The galaxy had rediscovered what it once lost, not just intelligence, but the will to fight for what matters. And in that moment, somewhere far away in the endless dark, a faint signal blinked from a forgotten satellite orbiting a dead blue world. A voice whispering through the void: proud and eternal, we are still here.